Huh? What's that? You wish you were back in Texas. Well, I've got news for you. Stadium Championship Series West hasn't left town yet, and the 12-driver group has plenty of unfinished business to settle. Gather around the campfire as we cover all the stats you need for Houston's second weekend, only on MonsterHub. Houston, we have liftoff. Stadium West kicked off their 2-week NRG Stadium residency with a perfect display of just how stacked this tour lineup is. Nearly every driver delivered under the Texas lights, some marching deep into the St. Louis-style bracket and others flying to the rafters in an effort to boost their Judges' Own freestyle score. Good news for Houston fans, nobody's left the building. The entire lineup returns for 2 more action-packed events, a trend all too common that even predates Monster Jam's tour setup. But as history and statistics show, and against the better judgment of some inspirational internet quotes, putting the same lineup into the same venue hardly ever yields the same results. Texas's 2-step stops of late have allowed its regular season attendees to rack up the appearance count, giving everyone in this lineup a chance at Houston glory even before last week's competition. Leading the charge, of course, is Son of the Diggers Ryan Anderson, whose first trip to NRG Stadium didn't come until 2014, 4 years into his competitive career. That late head start gives him only 4 events more experience than the next most tenured drivers, and there's a common thread between Anderson, Barry Musauer, Bryce Kenny, Jamie Garner, and Cole Vennard. The 5 veterans all spent 3 consecutive weeks in Houston to kick off the 2021 Stadium Championship Series, boosting their records with 6 appearances apiece. Bryce has made the most of his Texas experience since joining Monster Jam, averaging above 2 shows a year in the venue he burst onto the big floor map in 2018 with his first Stadium Overall Event Championship. If you're looking for a venue that celebrates identities, H-Town has it all. Nearly every monster truck in 2026's lineup has multiple previous appearances in this building, with just new recruits Shell-Shocked and Bailey Circuit making their NRG Stadium debuts last weekend. Dalton Widener traded his turtle concept last autumn for a chance to campaign Houston's local piece, the Rod Ryan Show monster truck. Inspired by the radio host and show of the same name, that identity's seen Monster Jam action since Dan Evans debuted it back in 2010, and it's been campaigned by dozens of drivers since, even Rod Ryan himself at points. This year, the body's been transformed into a purple haze fitting Zach Garner's machine, leaving Wildside shelved for a couple weeks. Overboard Motorsports, of course, is also in on the El Toro Loco 25th Anniversary Fiesta, one that puts the weekly Toro factoid on hold this week as we celebrate Lupe Souza's impending induction into the Monster Jam Hall of Fame. Okay, Lupe also swept both racing and freestyle in the Big Bad Bull here in 2003's 6-truck second event. Before competition kicks off in the Lone Star State, let's take a deeper look into each of these 12 drivers' relevant statistics. Kayla Blood's had more than a few hiccups getting the magic of her new chassis working in 2026, but even though she still trails Stadium West's lineup by more than 20 points, all hope is far from lost for Sparkle Smash's first rider. The Louisiana native led the fan scores on the San Diego 4 freestyle chart and persevered in the first Houston event to finish 4th on the skills leaderboard. Now that she's finally eclipsed the 15-point mark on this tour twice, Blood is due for a breakout performance that vaults her back into World Finals conversation. Blood's nearing 17 months since her last stadium victory of any kind, that roaring freestyle bringing Glendale its first taste of the unicorn, fading into memory with each passing week. Blame it on the expert judge, if you want. Since scored competition met an attempt at balance last year, Kayla's been shut out of the top spot, with gaps in her technical scores likely linked to the time filled percentage discussed back in San Diego preview, holding back Sparkle Smash's undeniable popularity. If fans still had the only voice, Pink and Purple would dot the freestyle win charts all over 2025 and 2026, but that's not the case anymore. Kayla can throw down world-class routines. Atlanta and St. Louis last year ring some bells, and that aforementioned San Diego routine deserved to at least challenge for podium, and I have no doubt she'll turn a few more routines in at that quality to at least make a case for another victory or two as this season rolls on. Jamie Garner's also trying to make steady strides forward from the back of the point spread, and even though he remains the only full-time El Toro Loco representative without a competition win in the Bulls' 25th year, he's been solidly marching back to form. Don't look now, but Garner's collected as many points as teammate John Gordon in the last 5 events. Jamie broke the 15-point barrier twice in the past 3 weeks, averaging a competition finish better than 6th place in Anaheim 3 with a skywheelie and skills that nearly stole the show. Jamie's always been a high-flying wheelman, but I'll admit his exceptional leap pace isn't near matching his overboard flight log from around the time he qualified for the World Finals main field. I'll also admit sustaining that altitude for years on end is not reasonable. But Garner's ground-level freestyle statistics could hold the keys to ascending the point sheet. Variety is the spice of Judge's own life among fans and experts alike, and the Indiana driver hasn't exactly capitalized on that front in 2026, going the first month and a half without throwing a donut, stoppie, or bicycle into any of his routines. Sure, starting a performance, or a whole competition even, with a backflip works wonders, but sprinkling in a few more technical hooks could provide the El Toro Loco Stadium star with much-needed points. Like Kayla, Jamie could also use a few racing runs further than round 1. Cole Venard's 2026 hit the crest of a racing win early on, but attrition across the last 2 events has left the captain of the Black Pearl with just 9 points to show for them, including 2 competition DNCs and an entire show scratched from his record. The treasured Chevrolet's hopes of contending on Stadium West are sinking fast, and not entirely within Venard's control either. But Stadium West is staying in Houston for another 2 events, and according to Cole's NRG Stadium pedigree, that just might mean a return to the top of the charts. Venard posted the fastest time of the night on last week's St. Louis-style course, not POD style, before stumbling on the starting line against Ryan Anderson in the semifinals. What initially looked like an awkward jolt forward ended up sending Cole and company to the cold pits for the night. The technical infraction was never explained at the event, but RII issues or not, it's pushed Cole to just 2 points clear of 11th place on the point sheet. That's hardly cause for concern from Mission Control. Venard's march through last week's bracket mirrored his 3 previous racing discipline wins in this building, and he's also captured 2 freestyle triumphs here when Houston hardly allows for repeat winners. 2-wheel skills remains his anchor, but that isn't a main field competition. As long as Cole can keep putting Black Pearl in the conversation for racing and freestyle hardware, I'm still of the opinion he's holding on to a World Finals 25 ticket. Speaking of World Finals, Megalodon will enter Salt Lake City as the reigning racing championship identity, but the question of which shark tamer gets to wheel their prehistoric beast into the main field, if not several, remains as wide open as the Gulf of Mexico. For a moment, John Gordon looked like a prime candidate. An Anaheim 2 racing victory punctuated his hot start to 2026. But he's earned the same amount of points as teammate Jamie Garner in the events following that win, and has slipped to 9th entering Houston's second helping. Like Venard, Gordon's also enjoyed success under the NRG Stadium lights. He piloted Bad Company to Freestyle Gold back in 2024 amidst a stretch of 13 consecutive unique winners in the discipline, bookended on either side of the streak by Tyler Menninga, but last week's Houston outing couldn't have gone much worse for the wheelman out of Hiram, Georgia. John avoided any last-place marks thanks to Venard's DNCs and Corey Rummel nearly crashing in round 1, but he still collected a 5-second penalty from cutting the racing course. Neither stoppie attempt off the middle hill went his way, and he bowed out of freestyle with more than a minute left on the clock after clipping a tabletop and sending Megalodon fin first into the dirt. Gordon is due to bounce back, but he'll need a weekend of punching above expectations to stay afloat on this hyper-competitive tour. The ever-frustrating thud of a wildly under-rotated backflip put a period on Mike Christensen's opening Houston 2026 romp. But with Gordon's stumble, Mike has climbed back into 8th place on Stadium West, firmly establishing himself as a contender for both more tour competition wins and a World Finals main field berth. The Vendetta frontman's raw racing speed has rarely led to a round 1 exit this season, a sign of good things to come for Christensen, especially if this tour continues to contest the double oval setup. As mentioned in San Diego preview, Mike's freestyle routines are technically solid and often fill most of the clock, but don't usually get the judge's zone appreciation needed to climb up the points sheet. Is there a rhyme or reason to this? San Diego 4's routine almost has me believing no. Christensen threw the kitchen sink into a fantastic run, complete with a wild, controlled save out of a run-finishing step-up leap. But look at everything else that happened at that event. Mari Musauer's cartwheel onto rec deck, Ryan Anderson's high-flying performance that I'm convinced only lost points to Zombie because Bari's crash was so fresh in everyone's minds, Tyler Menninga's big air brilliance, early backflips from both Bull and Unicorn getting that good ol' SoCal overscore. Vendetta's become an unfortunate but beneficial bellwether. A great run from Throttle Monster's top bill usually means a great freestyle competition top to bottom. Corey Rummel must be getting free trapeze lessons courtesy of the Ringling partnership, because he's absolutely launching Bailey's circuit into the stratosphere week after week. Houston was no exception. After nearly tumbling in racing and struggling with a valiant bicycle effort and two-wheel skills, Rummel sent his fluffy F-150 from coast to NRG Stadium coast in one of the fastest, most comprehensive routines of the event. Corey had to settle for third on the point sheet, but his next competition win is likely just around the corner. Remember how Ryan Anderson fell behind Bari Musauer in San Diego 4 by virtue of the son of a digger driver having to follow Zombie's tough act? Yeah, a similar case happened between Rummel and Menninga in H-Town. Fans scored Corey a full point lower than Tyler despite the Bailey circuit driver rolling at a slightly faster clip and throwing 2 saves in the mix. The good news? Rummel's already earned a freestyle win this season, and he'll very likely join Brianna Mahan in the World Finals main field so long as he keeps this energy up all season, a task hardly in question for the veteran. Each passing week, Corey looks more comfortable and willing to take bigger risks with his new machine. Last week's routine and his Anaheim 2 breadwinner stand at the statistical top of his career resume, and he's showing no signs of slowing down. Rummel's ceiling is rising, and that's dangerous news for the rest of the field. I won't go so far as to say the Rod Ryan Show monster truck body is cursed like I saw in the comments section last weekend. But across its litany of drivers, many with World Finals appearances, Houston's own hasn't seen victory lane in a major discipline in 10 years, back when George Balhan traded his Mohawk Warrior fiberglass to get Rod Ryan a racing win. Enter Zach Garner. The 2024 racing champion was a speeding skateboard away from his 4th trip to the finals this year, and this just might be the week he breaks through. Zach finally climbed back to the top of the stadium heap with an overall event championship in San Diego 3 and had his bicycle dipped just a little further onto the side last weekend. He'd probably have a second trophy to show for his 2026. Consistency is key for all drivers and a bit hard to come by this season, for Garner especially. Across his last 3 weekends of competition, Zach has earned 30, 3, 25, 11, and 25 points per show in that order. The initial punches of his Saturday performance in San Diego and Anaheim fade by Sunday, not least concerning of which the Snapdragon Stadium attrition that relegated him to last place finishes in every competition the day after his 2nd career stadium overall. As he ascends the point sheet and puts himself all the closer to the tour's upper third, avoiding those pitfalls becomes all the more important. Bryce Kenny first tasted overall event championship gold in the NRG Stadium back in October 2018, wheeling Mohawk Warrior back to the top step of the podium for its first such accolade. It took nearly 54 long months to get back to that level. All these years after that first Houston triumph, Kenny is back for more. And last weekend, he put Tech Deck's Rec Deck at the summit for the first time since debuting the 6-ton skateboard. Now, the conundrum's kick-flipped. Bryce still hasn't won a competition in Rec Deck. Don't let the 5th place point standing fool you. 2026 has been nothing short of a grind for Bryce Kenny, Matt Del Santer, and the rest of the Rec Deck crew, and not the fun off-the-rails kind. Between steering issues in Anaheim sending him into the dumpsters, right rear gremlins in San Diego that popped up the night before Zombie tried riding the skateboard, and mechanical issues knocking him out in the opening turn of last week's racing finals, this monsterized machine has been a piece of work since it first dropped into action this year. The fact Kenny's already pulled an event championship from this punk of a monster truck should indicate much bigger and brighter things are on the horizon. Assuming all the tricks are worked out of the trucks. It's only a matter of time before Bryce is ripping competition victories for the Spin Master-backed identity, with or without flipping trying a donut. Houston's first 2026 event did see a first-time competition-winning identity after all. Dalton Widener wrestled shell-shocked onto its nose, tossed the steering wheel out the window, and finally put his new turtle on top of the two-wheel skills score chart. It's a sentimental moment in a season full of storylines. Widener's now put his own identity from idea on paper into the Monster Jam all-time record books. He's sitting 4th in Stadium West points, well clear of his closest challengers, and within shouting distance of a bronze medal placement. Points deduction warranted from cheating into the wheelie in that combo aside, that Tennessee's newest monster truck titan is putting up this much of a fight in only his 2nd stadium tour is hardly a surprise. Last year, Widener made his presence felt against Menninga and Musauer by claiming several racing competitions, and aside from battery terminal woes back in San Diego, the mechanical attrition that forced Jurassic Attack to settle for 5th in points last season hasn't carried over to the new piece beneath the turtle's shiny shell. That trust in his equipment has allowed Dalton to better his personal best stadium freestyle finish to the runner-up spot twice. And while he hasn't quite snapped into the bracket-shattering speed he carried last season, he's punching just as hard in that discipline as teammate Mike Christensen, giving Team Throttle Monster 2 powerhouse rockets ready to win should anyone in the top 3 slip from form. Slipping from form, all things considered, is not something Bari Musauer often does. The zombie driver continues to bring home the hardware in 2026, shutting Widener out of the Anaheim 4 racing victory en route to that overall event championship, and grabbing 2 freestyle wins since MonsterHub last checked in on this tour. At 22 points, last weekend's Houston outing stands among his less impressive 2026 showcases, a staggeringly high bar to set against his competition. That 2nd San Diego freestyle victory came at a high price, with Musauer's final highlight also costing him all 12 points he would have earned from that competition win. It's the heftiest penalty so far handed out this season, putting him only behind Blake Granger's opening weekend and John Zimmer Jr.'s Pittsburgh time infractions in points docked, with far fewer events than the arena tours to make up ground lost from that deduction. Even still, Bari would trail Ryan Anderson by about 20 points for 2nd with those points back, and that's assuming Anderson's own boundary infraction in his Anaheim 4 runner-up would stand. Musauer isn't out of the title fight by any means, but back-to-back freestyle routines netting him 0 points total has buried Zombie behind the Gravedigger dynasty in front of him, a familiar sight since his 2022 season. He can't afford any more mulligans on this tour, and his destiny in the championship battle may already be out of his control. In recent years, Ryan Anderson has developed a knack for collecting maximum points. Since Monster Jam's adoption of the 30-second time requirement, Anderson has failed to complete minimum time in regular stadium competition twice. Consistency like that puts the son of a digger driver in a position not far from dominance, and his 7th place Houston 1 freestyle finish stands as his lowest since Denver of last year. Ryan carries unstoppable momentum back into NRG Stadium this weekend, and he's still within shouting distance of 1st place. For a brief moment after racing, Anderson had repassed Tyler Menninga for top honors on the tour courtesy of his bracket victory and the Gravedigger driver's Round 2 DNF. The scored competitions prevented him from holding that momentum. Ryan used both tries to lift his patented bicycle off the tabletop, getting no lift the first time and tipping over after a long ride the second. His mini-flip twisted and crashed with just over 20 seconds left on the freestyle clock, sliding him behind several landed rotations on the night. With a points battle this close, looking for a championship advantage is a bit like looking for the hay in the needle stack. Ryan's a tick ahead of Tyler in both racing and two-wheel points, with no obvious reason to say one driver is better than the other in 2026, and Tyler's lead over Ryan in freestyle is exaggerated by Anderson's Anaheim penalty. The only thing safe to say about Son of a Digger's 15th anniversary tour so far? Ryan's back to his usual winning ways. Tyler Menninga, of course, is next to impossible to stop once he's taken control of the leaderboard. Gravedigger's Iowa driver leads Stadium West in racing victories, has tied Bari Musauer for most freestyle wins, and trails Ryan Anderson by 1 in a back-and-forth tug-of-war for most skills triumphs. Menninga remains just 2 tours shy of a perfect first-half title record in his career, and as he keeps raking in the hardware, he's built an ironclad case to join the digger drivers before him in the Hall of Fame one day. Tyler has a decade or more before such enshrinement is even a thought, so let's try to dig up what's making this North Carolina battle so tight in the early game. Call it youthful exuberance or the willingness to take more risks, but Menninga's hit a few more bumps in the road along every competition than Anderson in 2026, highlighted by his round 2 hike and stumble against Son of a Digger last weekend. Tyler's ceiling and floor matches Ryan's in freestyle this season, but that's helped a bit from fans, expert, and competition attrition alike all absolving him of too much burden from back-to-back routines that left more than 50 seconds unused. The Gravedigger Phenom needs to keep his black and green wrecking machine upright for at least 100 seconds per run from here on out to prevent giving his fiercest competitor any more ground to capitalize. Okay, you've got the lineup. That's enough of my rambling for now. It's time to let the numbers do the talking. Get your table reading glasses ready because we're about to dive into the deep end of stadium bracket racing statistics, from career totals to 2026 info to venue specifics. Tyler Menninga gave everyone a breather last weekend with that early exit in racing. Put the Gravedigger pilot in the semis, and he's difficult to dethrone. Put him in the finals, and he's all but penciled in as the evening's winner. No one else on this tour is close to that level of deep-end domination. Dalton Widener's won 5 of his 8 stadium finals, and the Turtle Tamer remains among the few able to buck Tyler's late bracket trend. All 4 of Widener's recorded stadium victories against Menninga have occurred in the semifinals or deeper. The bad news for Dalton? This rivalry is projected to hit its next match in round 1 of Saturday's event, meaning he'll need to join the pack of Tyler's early exits to advance further than the 4-point mark on Saturday. I'd also keep my eye on the projected match between Caleb Blood and Corey Rummel. The Bailey Circuit driver has the career edge, but his 2026 inconsistency opens the door for Blood to put her new Sparkle Smash chassis into round 2 for the first time this year. There's plenty of data to sort through here, so feel free to go back a few seconds and pause to see where your favorite driver stacks up head-to-head. Last time we checked in on a Stadium West stop, Snapdragon Stadium provided just over a dozen prior brackets to mull over. NRG Stadium offers a significantly deeper dive, rivaled in depth of big floor history only by Anaheim's Angel Stadium. Racing on the Texas Gulf Coast has largely been Gravedigger territory in recent seasons, with Ryan Anderson, Tyler Menninga, and Adam Anderson dominating the charts since 2022. But the Kill Devil Hills party has seen its fair share of crashers, and while Camden Murphy won't be competing in Houston this weekend, 2025 victors Bari Musauer and Dalton Widener will. Bryce Kenny, Corey Rummel, and Cole Vennard all reached the golden spot here back in the 2021 Stadium Championship Series as well, giving this venue a high chance of repeat racing winners this weekend. A true surprise in racing in this venue is rare to come by. Matt Dishman marched through this bracket in 2018 to notch his first stadium racing victory, but Hall Bros Racing Rams have long been heralded as industry speed demons. After all that speeding through racing, I need a break. I need a little control. I need some balance, some precision. That's right, it's time for more numbers. Get those decimal points ready, because now we're covering two-wheel skills. that Shell-Shocked has, as Matt Kenseth would put it, unfairly been made the example of what not to do in the two-wheel skills competition, I'd expect Stadium West to be a bit more mindful of what constitutes a cheat in the moonwalk wheelie combination. That's not the first time Widener's settled his piece on all fours before throwing the truck to the back tires, see Anaheim 1, where Tyler Menninga also went into a reverse bicycle that shouldn't have counted as part of the combo. Menninga himself made the same mistake in San Diego 3, though the rollover from the resulting wheelie over rotation was likely deduction enough. But none of these previous violations have been called in 2026, and I'm not necessarily of the opinion they should be, or that the penalties for such a cheat should come down as harsh as they're currently being dealt. Infractions or not, H-Town seems to love its combos, especially as they approach the 20-second limit. I am never going to advocate for time penalties for holding a trick to that length, and would expect balance duration to again play a role in this weekend's top honors. Houston's all-time Judges Zone score chart will likely forever be skewed by the initial shock of seeing a monster truck staying in vertical position on its nose for longer than a few seconds, let alone intentionally. Lee O'Donnell mastered that technique quicker than almost anyone in the industry, and it's a shame we never saw the mad scientist contest a two-wheel skills championship in the discipline's infancy. Colton Eichelberger will probably hold Max D's best effort in this venue until the end of time too, despite his first attempt standing his grounds to strike his winning points from a championship battle by today's standards. But it's still possible to put staggering scores on the NRG Stadium board. Tyler Menninga put the fall in Fall Stadium Championship Series last season by sending Gravedigger tumbling side over side out of a gravity-defying sidewall. The recovery set him out for freestyle, but ties Camden Murphy for 7th all-time across recorded Judges Zone skills scores in this venue. We've covered speed, we've covered skill. What about style? Monster Jam's freestyle competition lets drivers attack the track every which way they desire. So let's dive back into the numbers and see what the stats have to say about the sport's pinnacle discipline. As mentioned in passing earlier, Tyler Menninga snapped a long spell of consecutive unique NRG Stadium freestyle winners, again, last weekend. Gravedigger's wheelman enters this weekend as one of the few Stadium West drivers with multiple Houston freestyle victories on his record, the only one to pull this feat off in the past 4 calendar years. Ryan Anderson's second most recent discipline win just eclipsed the 48-month mark. That's not to say this Texas place is totally too volatile to dominate, even if last fall's fiasco still haunts the minds of those who watched it. Houston just tends to reward a variety of competitors for their efforts. Long gone are the days of Huffaker and Anderson shutouts. Everyone has a chance at climbing to the top of the NRG Stadium ranks. The freestyle winner list exploded in variety around the advent of Judges Zone, ushering in a new era that inadvertently leveled the playing field for drivers in-house and independent. Sure, sometimes the name of the truck helps, but it's hardly the final say in who takes Houston gold. Like two-wheel skills, Houston's initial Judges Zone reactions to freestyle tower over more recent routines, though it's still possible to get stratospheric scores on the all-time leaderboard. And from the top 10, there's little Texas loves more than putting the truck beyond the edge of disaster. Todd LeDuc's, Bryce Kenny's, Ryan Anderson's, and Tom Mentz's incredible saves across the top 5 routines all reached ceilings approaching or above a 9.8. Certainly a tall task now with the addition of the expert judge into the mix, but not out of the question if a driver can come up with the unthinkable. For Bryce, it's yet another reason to hold his October 2018 Houston outing in high regard. The 9.859 he posted here in Mohawk Warrior still stands as his best ever Judges Zone reception. That 9.891 LeDuc posted also remains his highest score. just like last weekend, it'll take a special blend of technical prowess and a signature wow moment to capture the all-important 12 points available for a Texas-sized freestyle win. Like the most popular item at a packed buffet, Monster Jam just can't get enough of Houston or Anaheim, sending tours there multiple times a season for years on end. Stretch back to the days of the Astrodome and Angel Stadium's time known as Edison International Field, and you'll find USHRA-sanctioned events peppering the schedules of both cities that only get more frequent as we approach today's tour setup. Rod Ryan himself went over the NRG Stadium airwaves last week to wax poetic about how much Monster Jam loves Houston because Houston loves Monster Jam. Love, of course, takes many forms, but in the current structure, even with the high variety of winners in these venues, do the benefits of sending the same tours to these places week after week outweigh the drawbacks? Putting geography in the names of these tours has its own pros and cons. Sending Stadium East over to California, as happened last season with back-to-back San Diego events leading into Anaheim before the tour finally started moving toward the Atlantic, comes with its own eyebrows to raise. But with only 24 drivers intended to compete in domestic stadium tours every year, that at least introduces lineup variety across venues just 2 driving hours away, compared to parking Stadium West in SoCal for a month before anchoring them in Texas for 2 weeks. This isn't too different from the venue's histories, all things considered. Texas locals like Flame Motorsports made Houston their stomping ground, while Anaheim usually hosted California's own operations, led by the likes of Rick Swanson, Dan Rodoni, Donald Epidendio, and Kelvin Raymer. But the rest of these consistent lineups were often filled with a laundry list of different in-house identities and various out-of-state indie teams, rarely ever resulting in the same lineup over and over again. Yes, inputting the same variables into the equation of a Monster Jam competition hardly returns the same conclusion. Yes, this is no different from a NASCAR or IndyCar doubleheader weekend pitting the same drivers and teams against each other. But Monster Jam's always been an entirely different beast in the world of motorsport. There's no qualifying to make the show, there's not usually drivers or teams swapping in and out last minute. Couple this with the modern aesthetic of every track getting the same paint and largely similar layout, and we're left with each Houston and each Anaheim blending together into one conglomerate memory. Is there a way to remedy this while keeping tour structure? Or does this need to be remedied? Maybe these cities just can't get enough big trucks after all, same lineup week in and week out or not. While we're on the topic of venues just hours away, you won't have to look far to find Monster Jam's other domestic stadium tour. Partying up the Texas Triangle, Stadium East heads to Arlington's AT&T Stadium, with several drivers now trying to make up ground after accruing boundary infractions last weekend. Mike Pagliarulo and Colt Stevens turned heads with the Minneapolis overalls, and Tristan England still finding ways to put JCB Digatron into hood, cage, tail rotation. Freestyle Mania's trucks and bikes refire this weekend, swinging over to Belmont Park. Long heralded as a sacred city of horse racing, the Long Island Jewel has added a Monday show to its schedule, giving everyone an extra event to build their points totals. Once again, Arena Central competes east of Arena East this weekend as the Zimmer-led group treks from Pittsburgh to Cleveland to battle it out in the tight confines of the Rocket Arena. Arena West gets a tick more room to breathe this weekend in Oklahoma City, with Blake Granger barking the bark and walking the walk on his way into the Paycom Center. If all these numbers have you spacing out, let's recap you back into orbit. Tyler Menninga and Ryan Anderson continue a toe-to-toe battle at the top of the points heap, and their NRG Stadium racing records indicate that rivalry will continue in the one state big enough to contain it. But Texas also holds a long history of rewarding dozens of drivers with scored competition gold, especially when they're not afraid to pull out trick combos or risky recoveries. On that note, who stands out as the tricks are gnarly enough to be MonsterHub's driver to watch this week? Look, I'd be lying if Bryce Kenny driving Rec Deck didn't immediately make me think of Steve Buscemi in that one 30 Rock scene, but he's riding the skateboard up the ranks, and there's no reason to believe he'll stop now. With the first overall event championship out of the way and the whole tour parking in Houston for the week, Rec Deck should be ready to go for rounds 2 and 3 in NRG Stadium, with Bryce hungry for competition wins in an effort to build championship momentum back to World Finals. I hope you've enjoyed this week's roundup of Monster Jam statistics. There will be plenty more weeks to wrangle in numbers in 2026. Drop a like if you feel ready to lasso this weekend's NRG Stadium action, and share this video to help get the spotlight on monster truck statistics. I'll be taking a break for a few weeks to catch up on research and other life events, but I'll be back, and I look forward to seeing you again next time on MonsterHub. MonsterHub is not affiliated with Monster Jam or Feld Entertainment. All driver names, truck names, and other associated intellectual property belong to their respective owners and are referenced in this video for sake of statistics and clarity only.